Cool. Hello, everybody. Good morning. We're all here in the Israeli Mobile Summit. I think the most important word in this slide is mobile. Without mobile, we would not be here today. But how did we get here, actually? This graph represents shipments of smartphone devices from 2007 to 2024. What we can see is that on average, the past 10 years, over 1 billion smartphones are shipped every year. We can also see the smartphone boom era, which is the years between 2010 and 2014 or 2015, where the market grew 35% year over year. It is also a good intro to the company I manage, Rakuten Viber. Rakuten Viber started in 2010 at the beginning of the smartphone boom era. It was acquired by Rakuten at 2014, near its end, for $900 million. Rakuten is a Japanese e-commerce company, for those of you who are not familiar with. Viber is among the top 5 messaging apps in the world. We have over 550 employees in over 26 countries. We have hundreds of millions of monthly active users. And we started as a simple calls and messaging app, evolved into a super app today. Super app is a term I'll get back to later on in the presentation. About me, so I'm Ofir. I started at Viber around 2014 after the acquisition. I was promoted VP product 2 years later, 2016, and Chief Operating Officer at 2018. And since 2021, I'm the company's CEO. Part of the benefits of working for a giant Japanese company is that every year, 70 executives from around the world travel to Japan to climb Mount Tanigawa. It's a very humbling and powerful experience. Back to the smartphone boom era. What's special about this era is in past years, whenever we buy a phone, we usually replace the existing smartphone we already had. What's special about those years is that we all bought our first smartphone ever, right? You might recall opening the box for your iPhone 3GS or for your Samsung Galaxy 2. Usually what happened is you bought that device because a friend showed you this cool new thing, this smartphone which can do a lot of stuff, and that friend usually had either WhatsApp or Viber installed on their device, which is how we got from 0 to 200 million users in only a matter of years. In fact, the marketing tactic we used was the oldest tactic in the world. You might want to care to guess which tactic is that. That would be word of mouth. So in those years, Viber grew to 200 million users with a marketing budget of $0. In fact, we did not have a single marketing person in the company during those 4 years. So that's that's not to say that we didn't have any unplanned. So obviously the hypergrowth was a positive surprise and experience, but not to say we didn't have unplanned expenses. When you install a messaging app like Viber, we need to authenticate your phone number. That phone number authentication is done by sending you an SMS. The person bearing the cost for the SMS is the app developer. And when the Viber founders thought about building the business plan for Viber, they didn't account for the SMS sent because the idea was that an SMS costs pennies, hence it would be negligible on the balance sheet. But when you have 200 million users, those pennies add up. And eventually, the company bared costs of millions of dollars in SMS annually. Which brings us to the first takeaway of this presentation, one of many which I'd like to leave you with. First one is pretty obvious, that if you hyperscale, cents turn into millions very quickly, and we'll get back to this from a different angle. So after 4 years of the hypergrowth era, had fantastic growth in a newly developed smartphone market, no marketing costs, unplanned expenses in the form of SMS activations, and no significant revenue. So the company was loss-making at the time. Then came 2015, where we started seeing mobile apps, mainly games, starting to make a lot of money. Some of these companies still exist and presenting today in IMS. And we said, okay, now that we see that monetization is possible, we want some as well. Which is the point where we started to exercise monetization, but we had different challenges because the mobile industry, unlike other industries, is very unique in its lack of business model. It's mainly subsidized by giant companies or personal fortunes. Just as an example, the global messaging world is dominated by WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger, both owned by Meta, loss-making as individual products, but obviously giving a lot of value back to Meta. Then we have Signal and Telegram, both funded by the fortunes of their founders that sold other companies. We have Snapchat, which still didn't have a full profitable year since being founded in 2011, and us wanting to beat this game and become profitable. The three main challenges we had in our quest for profitability was A, monetization in a non-monetized market, extremely low ARPUs, if any. The fact that we are a messaging app means that we have network effect weighing us down, in the sense where you can download a game or a content app and consume it by yourself, but you have nothing to do with an app like Viber if your friends are not there. So network effect actually works against us when we try to grow, and the regular marketing tactics just don't add up in terms of ROI. And we were competing with loss leaders, with companies that are actually subsidizing this activity. So the goal was creating a sustainable growth and monetization by creating a new business model. We went back to what we learned from SMS activation, which is that we're paying a lot of money for SMS, but then the obvious conclusion is that if we're paying a lot of money, it means other people are paying as well, including advertisers. Hence, in 2016, we launched a product called Business Messages. This is an SMS, commercial SMS sent by a food delivery company. This is the same message on how it looks in a Viber business message. As we can see, there's an avatar, there's a scrollable carousel, prices, call to action buttons, additional information buttons to give more information, essentially a solution that is preferred more by customers, costs less, and converts better. The holy trinity of any business solution, which is no surprise why, combining with newly added ad placements, it worked. The company began to be profitable, earning more and more revenue, double digits year over year. Leads us to the second takeaway, is that if you're suffering for something, most likely others are suffering from it as well, which might be a business opportunity. This was also the success of Business Messages, by the way, was also the foundation for our company vision and strategy, which is Viber is a super app that's built, geared around utility services, and up to this day, this is mainly where our strategy lies upon. And then February 24th, 2022 happened. Anybody know what happened on that day? Russia invaded Ukraine. We find ourselves overnight with two of our top markets, which represents roughly 40% of our audience and 45% of our revenue, at war overnight. We stopped ads in Russia. We could not monetize Russia at the time. Obviously, Ukraine, a country at war. Also, monetization was practically impossible. Overnight, we went from revenue making to loss making. What did we do? We launched a two-phased solution. One is, we called it short-term, or if you want, first aids, essentially solutions that are fast but have strong revenue potential. And we obviously needed to change our strategy of the company. Takes longer, but is more strategic. In terms of the criteria for what needs to be a first aid, so a first aid is something that we have to have competitive advantage for, either by nature of the application or by expertise that we've already acquired during the more than 10 years of the company's existence. And we wanted to reduce the risk of launching new products by leveraging existing knowledge that again, the company existed for 12 years at the time. An example of such first aid is a feature called Caller ID. Caller ID is a feature that identifies the caller. You're aware of similar services, I'm sure, and informs you if this is a spam call, gives you the name of the actual person. The advantage of the competitive advantage for Viber is we're already installed on hundreds of millions of devices, so there is no user acquisition cost. We're already there. This also allows us to leverage our existing know-how in identifying spam calls and patterns, because we already need these services because we operate a messaging platform. So together with this, we also could show ads once the call is over with additional buttons. What's nice about this is that we went beyond the app, because now we show ads after every regular call, not on every Viber call. And as you can imagine, there are a lot more regular calls on a mobile device than there are voice over IP calls. So we actually extended beyond the application with this solution. Leads us to the next takeaway is that you trying to leverage existing technology you built for yourself for others, classic Amazon case of needing cloud services for e-commerce and then selling them as separate services. Another takeaway is that we stretched outside and found a solution to meet users in more touch points outside the app, like in the example of after every GSM call rather than after every Viber call. A second first aid is the Viber Plus subscription service. The idea was to bring a premium service, paid premium service to users, and monetize, not by not adding necessarily more ad placement and addressing ad fatigue. Then when we thought about launching this, somebody said rightfully, recall what we said before, messaging is a kind of a loss-leading industry, right? Most people don't, it's subsidized and don't pay. And the assumption was more than 99% of users would never pay for a messaging service. And this is true, by the way. However, going back to our previous takeaway number one, the same scale that hit us when we paid for SMS might be reversed. And what works against us in cost might work against us for us in revenue. Or in other words, in a scale of so high, even if a very small percentage of users would pay, that might amount to significant numbers in revenue. And it worked. Obviously, if it hadn't worked, it wouldn't be takeaway number 5. And today, Viber Plus is more than $10 million in annual revenue. This is the graph representing the growth in Viber Plus subscribers. And I always like to look at what story does the chart tell, and this chart tells a specific story. Around here, mid last week, we see a bump. More than almost a growth of 30% of users grew in a single month. I'm going to share with you what's the story behind that graph. So Viber Plus's value proposition was, we will bring users the ability to shut down ads like any premium service, UX customization, change your icon, colors, probably convenience features like voice to text. And that was what we thought people would pay for convenience and customization. Then we set up a test balloon and launched a feature called Delete Messages Without a Trace. So you're familiar with a scenario where you actually send a message to somebody, but it's the wrong person, or it's the right person, but the wrong message, and then you end up deleting it, and then the person sees you deleted it, and then they ask you, why did you delete it? And then you start this kind of back and forth, which is a bit embarrassing over a mistake. This feature allows Viber Plus subscribers to actually delete a message without the other person seeing that a message was sent in the first place. And this feature alone generated an uplift of more than 30% in the number of subscribers. So we said, okay, we got something here. Let's double down. And then we added more features like this. So the ability to leave a group silently. Remember, when you leave a group, there's a toast that says, X has left a group, which starts chatter on why the person left the group. So Viber Plus subscribers can remove that as well. You can hide your online and offline status. You can edit your message without that annoying edit confirmation that makes the other guys think that maybe you had a typo, or maybe you're emotional. And what we discovered is that what actually makes users subscribe is to avoid embarrassment. Or in Israel, I can say the anti-fadicha features. Brings us to one of our last takeaways, is that stagnating product might be one insight away from profitability. In our case, the insight was that users would pay sometimes up to 10 times more to avoid the pain of embarrassment over convenience. In retrospect, what we saw is that we can see obviously the dip in the war. The company went into a recession in terms of revenue, but ever since we've implemented those countermeasures, the company has record years, year over year, growing back and back to be profitable. We didn't talk about the long-term company strategy. In 2 words, what we did is we added a SMB service to allow businesses to create their own services. We allowed them to pay each other, either user to user or business to user, and a dating service which leverages what we learned with caller ID. We already have the install base. We don't need to pay for user acquisition, and now we have a competitive advantage over the competition. I can talk a lot about this, but I'm out of time, which brings me to the last takeaway for today. Always leave your audience wanting more. Thank you very much.